If you struggle to win ranked games or keep dying off spawn, then this video is for you, because I am one of the top ranked players in NA and I have won over 90 ranked games this season. And today I'm going to be breaking down a 17 kill Unreal ranked win to teach all of you how to dominate every ranked game you play. So if you guys do enjoy, make sure you are subscribed, but now onto the video. Now to start out this game, I'm going to be landing at Seaport City. Now when I'm landing at Seaport City, or any POI for that matter, when I'm gliding in, I always gather information. As I mentioned last video, I always scan my surroundings and count how many people are landing with me, but I also look at the height of where the players are. This means that I know I won't lose a 50-50 on a gun. For example, right here, I know I can drop for this gun because I turn around and I look at everyone and I notice this guy's higher than me. That means that I'll always pick up that gun first. After I do this, I then sprint down and make sure I get to this god chest before anyone else, so that if another player shows up like this guy does here, I'm able to pick up my first kill off spawn simply just because I focused on getting to the loot first. Now after I've gotten that first kill off spawn, it's very important that I scan my surroundings and I notice what's around me, because I hear a player below me and I know that he probably doesn't have as good as loot as me, or he probably doesn't have a shotgun. That means that I should kill him now while I have the advantage, so I instantly push him and I start to fight this player. When he runs away, I now know that he probably doesn't have good loot because he's not confident in his fighting ability. So I'm then just going to chase him, change angles, pump him once, and then I'm just going to chase him through this building, slide through, and then I'm able to pick up my next kill off spawn. Now after I've farmed some mats and got some good loot off spawn, I'm then going to work my way around the edges of the POI. This is because imagine I'm on the edge of the POI right now where I am. I can see everything in front of me, and I also don't have to worry about what's behind me. But let's say I'm in the dead center of Seaport City, I have to worry about players in front of me, behind me, to my left, and to my right. And since I did this, I was able to pick up my next 3 kills just because I worked my way around the edges of the POI. So make sure to do things like this off spawn. Moving on from off spawn at Seaport City, let's talk about the most important part of this video that most of you struggle with, mid game. Now when fighting in mid game this season, the biggest issue players run into is players running away from fights and third parties. Now the best way to avoid this problem is by ending fights quickly, but I understand that's a lot easier said than done. So let me show you an example of how I end fights quickly in ranked lobbies. In this fight right here, I see another player in a car. I'm going to get out to initiate the fight, and then when the other player gets out, he's going to then box up and he's going to realize he's on low ground, so he's going to throw a teleporter above me to get on height. When he does this, all I'm going to do is block off my head so the other player can't shoot at me, and then I'm just going to change angles by side jumping to get myself back on height. And now when I do this to avoid third parties, notice how I take a little break and I look through some ramps to make sure I'm not getting third partied from any direction. After I do this, I then focus my attention back on the player I was fighting before, and he is going to wait for a second, and then he's going to throw his teleporter up again, and he's going to take high ground. When he takes high ground though, pay attention to what I do. Instead of just making a little box of space like I did before, I'm going to create 2 boxes of space. This allows me to play from both boxes while fighting. Now when this player drops onto my box, obviously he's going to want to steal my cone, right? But I noticed that beforehand I placed this cone and he's standing on it. So all I'm going to do is, instead of double editing like any normal player, I'm going to edit the wall to my right and then edit him down into my box. I can then crack him, but I then reset the wall so that the player can't shoot back at me. Now at this point, the player literally only has one way to go, and that's out left. So to end this fight super quickly, I'm just going to edit out the right wall and then pre-piece it. This way, if the player moves into that box, he can't build. And then I was able to pick up a free kill just because I pre-pieced that box. And that was one way that I ended fights super quickly. Another way that I like to end fights faster is by cutting off angles. An example of me doing this in a fight is right here. As you can see, I sprayed a player and picked up a kill. Now after picking up the kill, most of these builds aren't mine. So I'm going to pick up the Oni mask I found on the ground and I'm going to throw it up to high ground. This will give me a second to breathe, and it will also allow me to not be in all those old builds. I can then see the player and get some opening damage. After I've gotten that big hit of opening damage, I'm then going to push the player, but pay attention to my crosshair. Notice how I'm always tracking him even when I can't see him. What this does is, if the player edits on me, like right here, I force a fake pickaxe swing and then it baits him to edit out, my crosshair is already on him, and then I can crack him and just keep applying pressure. And now I'm going to start cutting off angles when this player goes up on high ground. So I'm going to get up on his lair and start pressuring him. When I realize there's 2 metal walls in front of me, I'm going to change angles and look for an easier way in. This is just 1 wall away, so I try and go in through that entrance, but the player changes angles and he drops on low ground. So that means I have to cut off a different angle. When I realize he's on this wall right here, I'm going to swing once and then hold a ramp out to then allow me to phase into the box. And since I did this, I was able to pick up another simple kill in mid game just because I cut off a few angles. Now sometimes when you're fighting in mid game, third parties are literally unavoidable and you just have no choice but to let it happen. But one way that you can avoid third parties altogether when fighting is by your positioning when you enter a fight. What I mean by that is, in this example of a fight right here, you're going to notice I'm sitting in a box and I see a player in front of me. Now when I see this, me and another player to my left are going to start to spray this player, and I notice he gets cracked. Now after he gets cracked, the other player that was third partying with me is going to shoot me in my back and try and spray me. Now at this point, if I was to enter the fight like normal, if I was to just run over or teleport right in front of him, I'm going to get pinched by the other player. So to avoid that, all I'm going to do is simply throw my teleporter to the right of the player. What this does is it now makes me the player that's pinching this guy. Notice how now I land and I'm pinching this player in the middle. And that means that the other player from his POV right now can't see me, and that means I avoid the third party altogether. And that also means that I'm able to pick up this simple kill just because I took a different position when entering the fight. And also, since I did this, the third party is now forced to leave and he doesn't want to fight me anymore. Now that I've gotten all of these kills, let's move on to the final part of this video, Endgame, and I'm going to be showing you how I consistently win games and how you guys can too. In this endgame right here, this is me in this box right here, chilling on low ground as you can see, and there's still a few people alive as you can see. Now as this zone is pulling over this hill, it's going to be really hard for players to get up, so that means that most of the players on the minimap, as you can see, are going to be filtered down into these lower areas. Now the most important thing when zone closes in a zone like this, you need to be the first person out of these lower layers. So instead of going through all of this mess, you're going to go up and over like I do here. So I'm going to edit out to my right and then teleport up to the player on high ground. And then all I'm going to do is with my dash coin, dash past him. And then after I get past him, I'm going to pause with my metal and take a little break. The reason I take a small break right here is because if I go any farther down the hill, I'm back on low ground. But if I stay up here and then zone pulls over this hill, let's say, I can just teleport back onto height. After I've taken this break on height, I'm going to scout the other player on high ground, and I realize he exposes himself way too much, so I'm just going to spray him and get some opening damage. After I do that, I'm then going to dash over towards the player with my movement, and then I'm going to hold out a cone at the same time to block him. When I block him now, he more than likely is going to move to his right because that's the only space he can go to. I can then pre-piece that area, hopefully he goes into that area, and then I can get my pump off and then crack the player. After I do this, I can then just chase him into the box and then apply some pressure, and then I was able to pick up my first kill in this endgame. Now that I've gotten that first kill, you'll notice that zone is starting to open up to the hill, and then I can just simply throw my teleporter up and over and get high ground like I said before. After I get to this positioning, all the rest of the game is about is applying pressure and forcing players to stay on low ground. You'll notice that I'm just going to keep spraying everyone in the lobby that I see teleporting in. The reason I apply so much pressure is I want to cut the zone in half. Notice how now that I've sprayed all these players, they all have to filter into the right side of zone, and that means I've cut the zone in half. And if the zone pulls like it does here, I have this whole side of zone to rotate into. And if someone wants to threaten my position like they do here, this guy throws it and he gets a little bit too close to me, I want to force him to go back down into a bad position. So I'm going to teleport over, dash over, and then just shoot his wall with my shotgun and spray him and crack him. This now forces him onto a lower layer, and now I can just go back up and keep high ground. Now remember when I said off spawn, never work your way around the center of a POI? The same applies for when you're in an endgame. Let's take this player for example. If you're down the center of an endgame, you can't see what's below you and you have a bunch of blind spots, like he can't see this player below him or any other players below him. But if you're like me and you're tarping on the edges of the zone, you can see everything in front of you, and this literally allows me to pick up so many free kills in endgame just because I'm on the edges of the zone. Now after picking up a few kills in endgame, this player is going to contest me for high ground. When he does this, I'm going to give it up because he does win it. But what I'm going to do next is going to allow me to kill him. All I'm going to do is scan my surroundings and always scout height. What this does is it allows me to see him before he can see me. Notice how I'm still under the builds, but I'm looking at him at the same time. I can then pump him once, replace the floor again, and then just pump him a second time, picking up another kill. Now at this point, I'm on high ground and the last player is on low ground. Now I could chase him down into this mess and try and find him and kill him. Or I could just be patient and wait on high ground and see where zone pulls. And since I was patient, zone pulled back over the hill. And that means the other player just has to move towards me. And then I was able to pick up a simple win just because of my positioning. That is the end of this video. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you are subscribed. But if you want to see more content like this, go check out this video. But with that, I'm out. Peace.